It is January 7th, 2020, which you hear that noise in the background. That is a Starbucks employee engaged in nonverbal communication. It occurs in simultaneity with my activity of a communication device. They are engaged in listening to me, listening to my movements, listening to my activity. Again, my documentation this morning from the vehicle on FERN and G is again establishing another day of being stalked and harassed by airplanes, by third parties following me en route to the Starbucks. And that was replete with a helicopter again flying over. So this is adding context to the very thing that I'm documenting inside of Starbucks. This is already established. What I am connecting as far as third parties that are inside, again, I am in use of my communication device. You have the unnatural activity of light inside of this establishment. You have the third parties who, by definition, by their roles, are engaged in not acknowledging the targeted individual, acting like they're unaware, unconcerned about the targeted individual, while they are engaged in the identical behavioral patterns, namely the sparking of their communication devices, which they also do in conjunction with my movement and or activity, specifically while I'm engaged in documentation, which they are aware of because they are engaged in invasion of privacy. So it's not only the fact that they are engaged in that behavioral pattern, which is identical amongst strangers, okay, this is the system that I'm documenting, but it is also the timing of their conduct. This speaks to the expansive invasion of privacy. It is not a matter of coincidence that not only that they are engaged in identical conduct, but they are engaged in it at a particular time, at a pivotal moment when they are aware that I am engaged in such conduct. So in addition to that, you have the relevant positioning, and as I've already described the system that's in place, again, this adds context to the stalking conduct that is irreducible, that is directly provable by my evidence that I have every day, including another day today en route to this Starbucks where they are engaged in P.O.C. in concert with that government that is engaged in stalking and monitoring. As engaged in nonverbal communication by my movement, this speaks to the light, the flashing of light, where it is unnatural. It is not based on any direction or position of the sun. This is, again, readily provable in a court of law where I will present this, what third parties are engaged in. Starbucks is what is termed a facilitating venue. They are acting in concert with these third parties that surround me in relevant position, which is pivotal with regard to the ongoing search of electronic information that resides in a communication device. What I have as far as today is January 7th, and it's 11:38 a.m. And third parties are engaged in relevant positioning. Operation of communication devices is always universal. They are inside, around the building in the drive-thru, sitting idle in the parking lot, all in relevant positioning. This is in addition to the traffic. I have documented the use of the enhanced light tactics at the Stater Brothers parking lot across the street. These are all the same methods. They are all elements in that same system. And again, the universal fact that is undeniable is the stalking conduct of the government. And what I am showing is that these are the third parties that are acting in concert. This is why it is termed as a matter of public corruption, because the people of the state of California are knowingly and deliberately acting in concert with that government that is seeking to steal electronic information in a targeted individual's communication devices. And so what I'm documenting is, as one who is aware of what is occurring, you have the blatant, outright, provable, directly accountable stalking via aircraft of the government and law enforcement, as my evidence directly shows. And so this is highly relevant to the exact conduct, which is showing a consistency with regard to the behavioral patterns on the part of third-party employees inside of this facilitating venue, third-party patrons inside of this facilitating venue, the stalking, the monitoring that third parties are engaged in as they act in concert with that government that's engaged in that criminal conduct. They intentionally and deliberately do so. Public corruption is something whereby they exploit the factual circumstances that are at play. So inside of this cafe, as I have already shown, they exploit the factual circumstances engaged in purchasing a coffee drink, standing in line waiting for that drink, and also the creation of that drink. And they use those facts in order to engage in the criminal conduct. So this is why when you have a targeted individual claiming that they're engaged in nonverbal communication, they're acting in concert, making noise in concert with my movement, they do it under the guise of creating a drink, because the claim is going to be this targeted individual is crazy. She has some sort of mental incapacity because all I'm doing is creating a coffee drink. That is by design. This is a malicious system that is designed to depict the targeted individual as one suffering from a mental incapacity. It is the same thing with all the third parties engaged in relevant positioning, engaged in sparking of flashing of light, on their communication devices. And again, the fact of invasion of privacy is necessary, and it is also proven based on their behavioral patterns that are identical, and also the timing in which they engage in those identical behavioral patterns. And again, the third-party employees that I have documented engaged in the P.O.C. of invasion of privacy, of seeking to steal electronic information on my communication devices, of engaged in monitoring. This has been documented inside of this particular venue, which is Starbucks, by employees, supervisors at all levels. They are engaged in the P.O.C., engaged in relevant positioning, but regardless of their specific status, they are third parties universally. Third parties in that they are agents of the state that is engaged in stalking via aircraft, which is a matter of evidence. It's already proven. That's not any argument. Stalking via law enforcement, again, that is another facet of this system that is already proven. That's no argument. What I am showing is that the behavioral patterns that third parties are engaged in. And in addition to that, what you have is the behavioral patterns that establish what I am showing, is that it is not a matter of coincidence based on the proven unnatural and implausible activity of light, which demonstrates its centrality in the theft and search for electronic information. Again, the timing that they engage in such conduct. None of this is mysterious. None of this is impossible to define or prove in a court of law. My goal is to show the elements that are at play and the ways in which the state is engaged in, which is a matter of public corruption, and that is because the people of the state, the third parties, these are strangers that I originally documented engaged in stalking conduct over a year ago in 2018. I am now engaged in connecting those dots with regards to the state that I initially noticed and those strangers that were engaged in stalking, and now I am connecting the dots with regard to what they are termed. They are third parties deliberately and intentionally engaging in conduct which they assume to be innocuous and unsuspecting, but they do so with knowledge and intentional to act in concert with this government that is engaged in stalking American citizens, stealing their electronic information, which is an unlawful search against their constitutional human rights, and they intentionally do so. What I have termed as establishments like Starbucks, who have a litany of the elements present, including harassment, monitoring, and the invasion of privacy inside of the bathroom. It is important to note that this search, this monitoring, this system does not stop outside of doors of the restroom, and that is, of course, but I'm making sure that I connect the dots. So it is an egregious level of violation of privacy. And a part of the system, a part of the very intentional, malicious design is that the third parties that sit around who are listening to me document their criminal conduct, they conduct themselves as though they are unaware or they are uninterested, unconcerned about what I am speaking of. This is an intentional design of the system itself. And so what I want to show is that this is no suggestion that it doesn't exist. The fact that the government is engaged in stalking via aircraft is evidence that it does exist. It is reason for why the government is engaged in that, because I am aware of it and I am actively documenting it. In addition to the behavioral patterns that they consistently engage in, you're talking about people who I do not know, people who assumingly don't know each other, yet they are engaged in identical behavioral patterns. This in and of itself is the establishment of the system, the hostility. This is under the terms of harassment, as I documented here. It is not only an element in the system with regard to the search of electronic information, it is specifically based on their invasion of privacy, their knowledge that I'm documenting it, and the fact that the act itself is offensible to the ordinary sensibilities of any ordinary person. It would be offensive that you engage in lighting, sparking of your communication devices, focusing on a target individual while they conduct themselves as though they are not doing that. This is a malicious system, and what I am showing is that the way that it works inside of any ordinary establishment. This is Starbucks. This is merely a template for the way this system works at every other venue. It is merely a sample representative of that which is occurring at a systematic, ceaseless rate. And so January 7th, en route to this establishment, again, it's very relevant, the aircraft are following me, remaining where I am at inside of that vehicle on FERN and G, following me en route to this establishment. Again, it defies common sense, and it does not follow that it stops. What it is that I am showing, which is clear, is the fact that it is occurring inside of this establishment. And this is the way that it looks. This is the way public corruption depicts itself. This is the way it hides itself in plain sight. It is 11:45. and I am again at 706 West Holt. And this is in Ontario, California, and I am documenting the P.O.C. on the part of third parties, and this is after walking and documenting the stalking and harassment conduct by the state directly via aircraft and the ways that third parties engaged in systematic crossing paths while the airplanes were engaged in flying over. It's January 7, 2020. Okay, it's 3:39 p.m. I'm inside of Starbucks at 706 West Holt in Ontario, California, and it's January 7th, 2020. So I took an image, just a still capture of a third party that is sitting across from me at the table that I always sit at the south side of the cafe, which is at the corner of San Antonio and Holt. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, to show the close proximity of third parties that are in relevant positioning while the abnormal and unnatural direction of light is active inside, in addition to the ongoing ceaseless use of nonverbal communication by third-party employee and patrons alike. They engage in alternating in between that tool with regard to monitoring me, which I am a targeted individual. I am just outlining all of the elements that are present in that system and what they are actually engaged in concert with the state that is stalking and monitoring and harassing an American citizen. So at 3:36 p.m., what you have is on the at the parking lot, which would be at the south side of the parking lot along Holt, which would be the west side parking lot on the opposite side of San Antonio. And with regard to common sense, the basic natural order of things, in conformity to everything else that I document, you have the alleged position of the sun, whether it is actually directed light or the actual position of the sun. It's 3:40 p.m. So with regard to that, and with regard to the way that the light is directing inside of this building, what you have are, as vehicles are driving through the parking lot, and that would be driving north and south, the sparking of light off of the vehicles, which would be the right side of their vehicles as they are driving past this window where I'm sitting inside. Based on the location of the sun, that would not result in any reflection. First of all, based on the reflection of the sun, which I have depicted in that image that I took, where you're seeing how the sun is hitting, the angle that it's hitting from, so the sun is going to be hitting a vehicle actually on the left side, which is not going to result in any sparking or flashing or reflection of light inside of a window, let alone at this distance where I am inside of the building. This is just another example of the same. And so with regard to the system, I want to make my main point, because I have already stressed this is already proven with regard to third parties, and with regard to the system and the malice behind it. Third-party role is to conduct themselves as though they are engaged in everyday life. This is a matter of public corruption, and so it necessarily hides itself in everyday occurrences. So you have the system that exploits factual circumstances as they exist in any given venue and at any place that the target individual is at. And so they necessarily use those facts and circumstances as it relates to executing this ongoing monitoring, stalking, and harassment. And they do so while acting as though they are engaged in perfectly normal, legal, unconcerned, unaware, uninterested in the targeted individual that they are very much concerned on, honed in on, and focused on. And the way that that is proven is based on the behavioral patterns. Again, while they conduct themselves, not even looking or acting like they're listening to the target individual, they are engaged in identical behavioral patterns that also, number one, basically shows how they are so focused in on the targeted individual. Number two, the unnatural and illogical and asinine, idiotic, just purely criminal and depraved and desperate, it's just ridiculous, okay, the efforts with the light. It shows, number one, the centrality of light in the unlawful search and theft of electronic information, number one. But number two, that is what is the proof, despite what third parties seek to conduct themselves as, while they conduct themselves outwardly as they are engaged in whatever activity on the outside appearance. This is a superficial act. This is a part of the very system. What I am saying is that what is actually occurring is proven by virtue of the conduct itself. While they conduct themselves as though they are uninterested and unaware of the target individual, their very behavior, the unnatural position and direction of light is proof of the opposite. This shows, and the fact that these occurrences are occurring in conjunction to, in simultaneity with, the targeted individual's movement, activity, speech. They're listening to everything and engaged in concert with this state that is irreducibly engaged in stalking and harassing and monitoring the targeted individual. And so these are the things that prove what third parties are actually engaged in, despite their outward appearance of trying to conduct themselves as though they are engaged in otherwise innocuous and unsuspecting behavior. And by definition, that is how public corruption depicts itself in the first place. With regard to the malice of the system, that is an intentional and deliberate design, because the targeted individual who seeks to claim that they are being subject to such monitoring, and perhaps they're unable to articulate what it is, because ordinarily a targeted individual will have no idea what is occurring, and secondly, they probably would not have a whole nomenclature for what is occurring. But what I am saying is what I understand is, based on my observation, based on my creating the elements that are present in the system, you can see how it is designed maliciously and deliberately so to depict a targeted individual claiming to be subject to such a criminal system as one who is suffering from a mental incapacity, because the basis of it, third-party role, is to provide the guise under which this corruption exists. This is how it is hiding in plain sight. And so the very acts of the third parties, it is proven by virtue of the elements that are present. The fact that they are engaged in monitoring on behalf of the state, that is proven to be engaged in stalking harassment, that's a fact that they cannot that they cannot resist or escape from. It is insurmountable. The fact that they are engaged in monitoring in concert with that government, proven by virtue of the unnatural, illogical, light conduct. The fact that they are engaged in monitoring in concert with this government that's engaged in stalking and harassment and monitoring is proven by virtue of the nonverbal communication. That is a consistent behavioral pattern. And these are the ways that you seek to look past through the superficial exterior. This is how something like this is perpetrated, and it's my goal to demonstrate how it is hiding. It is hiding in plain sight, and you do have to look past the veneer, because it is intentionally designed to appear that way. And it is 3:46 p.m., and I originally thought to just, again, give another example. It is patently ridiculous, and that is why it is under the aspect of harassment. It is not just included with the ongoing unlawful search. This is a means of harassment because, again, you are mindful of third parties who are not only engaging in that criminal conduct with the state, they are listening to the targeted individual who is aware and who is actively documenting, basically letting them know that I am aware of what they're doing, and they continue to do it. That is a means of harassment and malicious conduct, for which there should be a heightened level of tortious and criminal liability, which is my theory of the case, in a facilitating venue like Starbucks, where I am documenting the P.O.C. at a ceaseless substantial rate. So it's 3:46 p.m., and again, that was unnatural. Again, another example, another iteration of the same. And that third party, the other significance of that image of the third party, you see how the sun is hitting that targeted individual, how it's hitting the table, meaning how it's going to be hitting a vehicle that's driving north and south of the parking lot on the west side of this building. Again, suggesting how it is an unnatural attempt to, again, engage in the same light activity, which is pursuant to the same unlawful search and theft of electronic information, which is a main component in a state-organized system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring. It also shows the relevant positioning of the third parties. This is very instrumental with regard to the nonverbal communication that they engage in. Nonverbal communication is occurring in simultaneity with the need for third parties to consistently keep the targeted individuals surrounded, because that is how they engage in the theft, the capture of the electronic information in concert with that light. That is a tool in capturing that information. And so this is how these tools that I'm identifying as elements in the system, this is how they're working in conjunction with one another. And again, the universal facts remain. Law enforcement engaged in stalking and harassment, which I have a thorough, prolonged history of in existence, in addition to the state that is engaged in stalking an American citizen via aircraft. These are facts that are inescapable. They are insurmountable. This case, the system that is in existence, is the very reason why the state is engaged in such unimaginable conduct. And what I am showing on the part of third parties is no less than showing the malice that is behind the very design of it, because they are engaged in targeting and honing in on every movement, the very breathing pattern, the eye movement of the target individual while conducting themselves as they are not even concerned about their presence, unaware of their presence. It is something that is egregious, and that for which California should be thoroughly exposed, and this is what my documentation seeks to do. because what I am showing in every image when they're engaging in P.O.C. but looking in the opposite direction, or engaging in P.O.C. and staring at their laptop, or laughing and acting as though they're engaged in something with their children, this is all despicable conduct on the part of third parties who are engaged in concerted criminal conduct with the state, the government, who was engaged in openly, and that's something cannot be refuted, stalking and harassing and monitoring an American system. It's 3:49 p.m. And again, I am at a facilitating venue, that is Starbucks in particular. That is just one of many that I have documented. It's at 706 West HOLT in Ontario, California. It's January 7th, 2020. And again, the fact that they exist currently is I have filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court because the appeals court unlawfully denied me the legal relief that I am entitled after being informed that the government is engaged in stalking an American citizen. But that is neither here nor there. It's a matter of documenting the entirety of the system, and the court's conduct is very, very relevant to that same system that I am documenting and exposing. And so it also adds context to that which I document every single day. None of it is unilaterally relevant. All of it is adding context in its entirety and to be assessed in its totality of circumstances, because you are seeing. It is 5:01 p.m. I am still at the facilitating venue, Starbucks at 706 West HOLT. The latest image that I took was of third parties, and this is again the P.O.C. with regard to their conduct, which is a part of the very design of the system. But what you have is, and it occurred as I was logged onto Starbucks Wi-Fi, engaged in activity on my communication device, my telephone, using the Wi-Fi site, specifically checking for the non-response from the clerk from the Supreme Court engaged in P.O.C. in conformity to this overall system. But anyway, those third parties engaged in crossing path and flashing with their communication devices as they walk past. That is another enhanced light tactic combined with the crossing path, which is relevant positioning. And again, the way they conduct themselves is irrelevant. What I am showing is that they conduct themselves as part of the system in and of itself. And their identical behavioral patterns on the part of total, complete strangers to me, but probably to each other as well. They are engaged in a system acting in conformity with the government that's engaged in stalking and harassing and monitoring me. And that is why they are engaged in such identical patterns. This is the system that is in place. Again, the light tactics are executed in a plethora of ways, as my documentation reflects, and that is just another example of it. Getting images of third parties, the way that they act is totally irrelevant. It is part of the very system. It's part of the design. And they engage in the behavioral patterns. They engage in those elements with regard to the search, the unlawful search, crossing paths, flashing of the communication devices. Nobody's taking any pictures in here. There's not a photo shoot going on. And the flashing light is directed in my direction. And it is in concert with my activity on my communication device. This, again, is not a series of coincidences. There's not enough coincidences in the galaxy, as I have said before. This is clinically termed as patterns, behavioral patterns that third parties are engaged in. And they engage in this cyclically inside of this facilitating venue of Starbucks. This particular one is in Ontario at 706 West HOLT. It's 5:03 p.m. right now. It's January 7th, 2020. This is P.O.C. that I'm documenting as I'm walking on San Antonio after leaving Starbucks. And again, this morning I documented being followed there by 4 airplanes and a helicopter. Documented the P.O.C. inside of that facilitating venue. And en route back to the vehicle on FERN and G, I see a bunch of sparkling lights. This is the state engaged in relevant positioning. All the elements are present with regard to their lighted vehicles. This is a search that's ongoing right now. They only engage in it by waiting for my arrival and crossing path. It is P.O.C. for the state to engage in creating some legitimate appearance of their presence. This is P.O.C. for the same stalking and monitoring that they've been engaged in that I've been documenting since 2018. I'm looking at vehicle number 1874. It's license 1510636. I'm looking at a fire department vehicle, Battalion 1. It's license 1420228. I'm looking at fire trucks behind that. They're all in the middle of the street. Ontario Fire Department. This is ME131, and it is license Let's see. I don't see it. I'm looking at police officers standing in front of 562 and 560 doing not a damn thing. They're engaged in P.O.C. I'm looking at fire department. They're just standing in the street holding a water hose. This is P.O.C. for creating a purpose for their presence. That's what it is. It's P.O.C. and the license. Excuse me, gentlemen. Let me get that license on this state vehicle. Excuse me. The license on this fire truck is 1332569. And they're just standing in the middle of the street. There's a water hose on the side of the truck. They're not doing anything. They're doing absolutely nothing. Let's see, Ontario Fire Department, the second fire truck, license ME131. It's license 1255773, truck 131. I'm looking at another battalion truck that is pulled into a driveway of a private residence. Again, this is P.O.C. They create a reason for they quickly scramble and exploit the factual circumstances. They are engaged in P.O.C. The flashing lights is enhanced light tactic. They are engaged in relevant positioning. The state itself is particularly specialized in order to engage in that unlawful search without the need of third parties. Although en route from Starbucks to my present place, third parties were engaged in relevant positioning the entire time. This is license 1480587. This is a battalion truck, fire department. The engine is running. Communication devices inside of all the vehicles as well. This is the same P.O.C. This is explaining also the futility of their criminal conduct, where I am aware of what is going on. They're not engaging in anything successful anymore. And in fact, I am also prosecuting them in the courts. I'm looking for a battalion number. I don't see one on here. It's Ontario Fire Department 5560 is what I see, Ontario Fire Department. Is it gonna blow up? Is it gonna blow up? Am I presenting a threat to it? No, you're just hostile because I'm documenting your criminal conduct. Mind your business, criminal. You're a criminal. Sitting out here in a uniform, not doing a damn thing. Look at these police officers, just hands in their pockets. Or go where? Is this not public? Why?
Because obviously they're working right now.
No, that's not obvious. Just like you were just standing around with your hand in your pockets.
So
it looks like you're engaged in P.O.C. That's what it looks like.
So you need to move on. Yeah.
But I asked you why. Why?
Because you have to.
Because why?
Because they're working here, and they don't want you around their trucks.
I'm not around the truck anymore.
You were around
I'm not around the truck anymore.
Okay, well, don't go around there.
So I can stand on the sidewalk. You don't run the sidewalk. So why do I have to leave from here?
Just move on.
Because you're hostile to my presence because I'm documenting your criminal conduct. And who are you?
Yeah, just move
80509?
Yes.
And who are you? What is your number?
Thank you.
What's your number?
Thank you.
I don't see no number. I don't see any number.
All right.
What's your name say? I can read, but I can't. Oh, L keys. Okay.
All right.
You guys got me on your you little search. Did you get anything? You didn't get shit, did you? But I got what I needed. They're criminals. Anyway, they're engaged in P.O.C. and they are hostile to my presence. They're doing absolutely nothing. They're standing in the middle of the road. They're standing in front of houses. I've documented this same P.O.C. before. They can come up with some sort of paper trail as though they were here for X, Y, and Z. It really doesn't matter. The fact that they were engaged in flashing lights while I'm crossing the street, that is crossing path, engaged in relevant positioning to my location, which is not a coincidence when there are airplanes engaged in stalking and surveillance and monitoring, when there are helicopters engaged in flying over me at every place that I go, which I have documented. And so what I've captured now is this is police and firefighters parked in the middle of the street, all their lights flashing, all engaged in relevant positioning, doing absolutely nothing actually. And in addition to that, I am looking at the helicopter flying above me. I'm looking at the airplanes, the same airplanes that stay above the vehicle where I remain, that continue to fly over. They are continually flying over this location where I stand right now. So this is capturing what they did not expect for me to do, which was to come down the street and come closer. What I've documented is the futility of their criminal conduct. Not only am I, as a targeted individual, aware of their criminal conduct, I continue to document it, and I'm showing they're not even getting anything anymore. They're not. So I come and I counter and I get every single license plate, and they demonstrate and show their hostility to my presence because I'm doing so, because I'm not breaking the law at all. They are servants of the state of California, of the citizens. and so I can stand on any sidewalk, which is public property, that I want to. They are hostile because I'm documenting what is criminal conduct. This is the same system that I'm documenting inside of Starbucks, where they take on the appearance of engaging in that which is otherwise innocuous, or which is not going to be questions where it's engaged in by the government, but what I'm showing is that the government is engaged in corruption. They are the ones who engage. Law enforcement are the ones who stole my car. There was no marking identification on the outside of it. That's how they knew, because they're stalking and monitoring me, and they have been doing so for a long time. So this is a real-time documentation, criminal conduct, third parties that are surrounding also en route to my traveling down the street, and they are, based on their position, able to come up with any sort of BS as to why they were present. But what I will show, regardless of that, just like Starbucks, those are criminals in there that are really making coffee drinks, but they are also simultaneously engaged in P.O.C. In the same way, regardless of whatever purpose that they claim for being present, and it is P.O.C. for the state to create a reason for their presence, no matter how ridiculous it is. Regardless of that, they are still engaged in P.O.C., and there is no exclusion and or exceptions. Again, the fact that the state is engaged in stalking and harassment and monitoring via aircraft and through law enforcement, the fact that I'm encountering them as I'm walking back to the vehicle, this is not a coincidence. You have the sound of the sirens at every location that I'm going, showing that they are constantly within the physical proximity of my location. That is stalking. That is monitoring. That's not a coincidence, again, as a third party is trailing my presence on this street. And again, not looking at me, acting as though they're unaware, but they are very much trailing me, listening to every word that I say. I'm at D Street, D as in dog, and Beverly. And that's a third party that was just driving slowly on my left side, listening to me narrate in real time the P.O.C. I am leaving that scene. It's artificially engineered, creating some sort of scene whereby they can engage in being present while I cross the street, which they are well aware of where I am at all times. It's 5:31 p.m. January 7th, 2020. And again, this day was started by documenting airplanes, 4 commercial-sized airplanes flying over me as I walked to Starbucks, and a helicopter flying over me not far from this street. It was on East Street and San Antonio. I'm on D Street right now. This is the same area, and I've documented the stalking conduct inside of a plethora of different counties in California. So I cannot stress it anymore. This is the same system, and what I just captured were all the license plates of fire and police. They are jointly engaged in criminal P.O.C., and that's what I just captured, while the airplanes are flying above to boot. I'm at D Street in San Antonio, so I just walked down the street and I just got all those licenses. January 7, 2020. That's a helicopter flying over me, emergency lights directly in front of me. This is after I just left the police scene. Third parties approaching their car because they're listening to me document, but I'm gonna get this license. He's standing right in front. He's on the sidewalk. It's a white Ford Focus. 4YD as in dog, H as in Henry, 160. Emergency flashers on, parked on the sidewalk. Parked on the sidewalk where I'm walking while the helicopter flies over me and another aircraft. These are vehicles engaged in crossing path. In addition to what I just documented with the presence of police and firefighters, it doesn't get any clearer than this. It gets no clearer than this. No clearer than this. That's exactly what I captured with criminal conduct. Those are third parties engaged in crossing path. That's all they have to do, especially when they create a scene like they did over on the opposite side of Beverly, where I was crossing at San Antonio and D Street, where they anticipated my presence, because that is evidence of the ongoing stalking and surveillance. Law enforcement has been engaged in such, and the aircraft has been engaged in such. They have created a perimeter where the third parties are engaged in crossing paths systematically. That's also, they have all their lights on the vehicles lit up. Those are all the elements that are present. The airplanes were not present when I was documenting the P.O.C. on the part of third parties engaged in this ongoing theft of invasion of privacy and theft of electronic information. This is highly relevant to the very scene that I just left. Helicopter flying over me on the way to Starbucks, helicopter flying over me while I'm documenting criminals in fire and police uniform, helicopter flying over me while I'm walking and documenting third parties engaged in relevant positioning. And again, as I approach, they're all engaged in conducting themselves as though they are not engaged in criminal conduct. They're listening to me document them. and their role as third parties is to act as though they are doing absolutely nothing. Like they don't even know that I'm present. That is their role. But what ties it together, again, is the overt criminal conduct of the state. That's what is proof of it, because that's why the state started engaging in stalking via aircraft. That's why law enforcement made its presence more prominent. That is to communicate a threat, because I was aware of it, because I was documenting it. That is proof of the third-party conduct. The identical behavior patterns, again, that is proof of the third-party aspect, that they are knowingly and deliberately acting in concert with this government that I continue to document, that is flying directly above me right now as I walk at Vine and Flora, as they were doing this morning when I was leaving toward the vehicle. So this is interesting to note, because what is good about this is that what I have are the facts that are relevant to date, which is the stalking conduct that they continue to engage in knowingly. They know that I'm aware, because invasion of privacy is inherent in a corrupt, defiled, depraved system like this. But in addition to that, this is simultaneous with the conduct and the filing with the Supreme Court. This shows the brazen malice and willfulness and design interest to oppress the targeted individual. This is very highly relevant with regard to liability, tortious and criminal otherwise. It's January 7th, and so this is another form of my documentation. I wanted to get multiple forms of the same conduct. Where I am approaching right now, I'm on Vine and F as in Frank, and that's a helicopter flying directly in front of me as I'm walking on Vine Street, Vine at F. And this is good to document. This is going to be very material against the state. There is absolutely nothing that they can say. They must either, I have no idea, but this will end up in court, and I will be prosecuting, if not I will be prosecuting them, if not in the Supreme Court, by granting the Supreme Court doing its due diligence, or I will be prosecuting every single last court in the state of California. Either way they want to go. But as far as their conduct, it defies common sense. There are too many facts. What I continue to document moment by moment, based on their conduct, which defies common sense, they will be prosecuted for this, and it's all going to come out. And you have facts that I continue to gain, second by second. There is nothing plausible that you can claim about an individual experiencing helicopters multiple times in a day, first of all. But you're talking about over a prolonged amount of time, that I have multiple forms of the helicopter. I have experiences with law enforcement. Anyway, this is why I create multiple forms of the same documentation, because there is no argument. And so as far as the state, it is something that speaks to a level of depravity that is inconceivable. That's really what it is. And this is about California that is highly antagonistic and hostile to me, an American citizen who has the audacity to document them engaged in criminal conduct and actually being aware of it, and having the skill set in order to expose it. And that's exactly what I represent. And it defies common sense, all of the law enforcement, all of the helicopters, all of the airplanes that I continue to document. But it does provide the exact correlation to the third-party behavioral patterns that I continue to document. It is very proof of the third-party conduct that is in concert with the state, that is openly engaged in stalking, harassment, and monitoring. It is the very proof of that. And so, excuse me? Stay over there, third party. So anyway, I'm at 7-Eleven now at Vine and G. This is 636 Vine. And again, as I was walking on Vine, there I can still see the airplanes present and the helicopter that was flying west as I was walking towards 7-Eleven. This is all relevant again. When you're talking about the facts as they exist, you're talking about the third-party conduct that I document inside of facilitating venues like Starbucks. You're talking about the existence of a system. You're talking about the stalking conduct that is It's unavoidable. It's already established, and I continue to document it on the part of law enforcement, on the part of the state, on the part of the government via aircraft. These are the different facets that are clearly established, and the system exists by virtue of that pattern of conduct on the part of each of on the part of each aspect of that same system. So, anyway, it's January 7th, 2020, and this is essentially another form of documentation all the way from Starbucks. This is actually this one started at D Street, getting the law enforcement presence, because I wanted to make sure that I specially capture that particular instance, like I usually do with regard to the state directly engaged in criminal conduct that is going to be directly attributable, and providing context to third parties engaged in criminal conduct with that state. It is 5:46 p.m. and I am back at the vehicle at FERN and G, where the airplanes remain present, continue to fly over and around this vehicle at all times. It's 5:46 p.m.